Some viewers may find the following video disturbing. Viewer discretion is advised.
All right, everyone. It is the end of a chapter here at the Lone Wolf Podcast. We're going out with a bang tonight. I've got some guests that are going to be coming on. Going to be joined by Alan Myron here at the top of the hour. We pre-recorded this clip because I had to delay it to make sure Reed Coverdale was able to come on. So yeah, I mean, we're going to be talking about a lot of stuff today. When Reed comes on, he's going to be coming on around the 8 o'clock hour or so. We're going to be talking about the whole trucker convoy situation. But when Alan Myron comes on, we're going to be talking about the elephant in the room, which is going to be this whole war with Ukraine and Russia. So, you know, a lot of people were a little skeptical on exactly what Putin would do in terms of going to war, right? So, you know, there's a lot of stuff to get into there. I'll answer some chats after we get to the Alan Myron stuff. There's a lot me and him talk about, so I don't want to spoil anything right there. So when we get ready to go to that, I'll let all that play through, and then we'll come back. I'll be answering some live chats as we go. I did have one other guest lined up that I really wanted to get on the show. Franco from Frank Analysis. Originally, he was scheduled to come on. He said he had an emergency come up today. He isn't going to be able to make it. I don't really know what happened, but you know, thoughts and prayers are with Franco. If you're watching, man, hope everything's okay. Hope whatever happened, hope things get better for you pretty soon. We'll be praying for you over here. But I do want to give a shout out because that's a lot of what this end of the chapter video is going to be about. While we're bringing in this top of the hour, talk about this for just a little bit here. So for 2+ years, whether it be when this was the Independent Report or whether it be when I rebranded as the Lone Wolf Podcast, majority of the videos have all been done from right here in this room. This will be the final video that goes out in this room, the final live stream from right here. I thought, you know, be fitting to get some guests on the show. And when I thought of guests, I'm like, I really want to reach out to people who have been a very, you know, supportive person connected to the show. You know, a great friend, a great ally, someone that's really done a lot to help me out. And there are a lot of other people. I'm going to be naming those people as we go through, but you know, to avoid making something like a 3-hour live stream, you know, the three names come to mind. Okay. The first is Alan Myron. Okay. Alan Myron, and we're going to be rolling that clip at the top of the hour. We talked about a lot. Alan Myron found me when I was a very, very small channel. Not that I'm huge now. I'm only 800 subscribers, whatever. Right. But back in those days, no, I was a complete, you know, tiny channel. The Independent Report, I was just getting started, and really, I don't even think I had 50 subscribers when Alan came across me, and I made a video talking about Tulsi Gabbard, and he had a pretty good following. He shared my stuff around, and I got my first 100 subscribers, you know, thanks to that guy. So I really owe him a lot to help me get that first boost, to get over that first speed bump. Someone else that has done a lot to really help get my name out there and stuff. I've been on their show multiple times. Again, that's why I want him to be here tonight. So I hope everything is well with him. But that would be Franco from Frank Analysis. I have gone on his show many times. I've watched this guy when he was a part of HMO podcast. He started off, he had at the time, my channel was bigger than his, but I've watched him. He's grown into a great channel. He brings on a lot of people, his panels. He does really good work, and he doesn't just talk about the problems. He actually gets these panels together, and he tries to really find a solution to these problems. He doesn't just want to bitch about them. He actually wants to find a solution. So he's done really great stuff. I'm really happy for the success that he's got. I along with everybody else, was not only pissed, but extremely upset and just sad for the guy when YouTube pulled his monetization away. Right after he got monetized at 1,000 subscribers, he just crossed that threshold. Something I'm still working towards on YouTube. One of these days we might get there. But he just crossed that threshold, and then they fuck him out of it. I'm like, geez, are you kidding me? Really? So I really felt, for the guy, because I knew he'd been working his ass off to get to that point. But he has helped me out a lot. And one of these days, and I told him, I'm like, because these are going to be little clips. We're not going to do like a whole hour podcast with all these guys that were going to come on. I extended out like with Alan Myron due to the fact I'm not going to be able to get Franco on. But one of these days, I'm going to have to get Franco over on this show. It's going to have to happen. And then the last is my other friend I owe a lot to. Hardworking blue-collar guy just like myself, truck driver, and he will be joining us somewhere right around roughly in the 8 o'clock mark or so. I've sent him the link. Whenever he gets a chance to hop on, he will. But that would be the naturalist capitalist Reed Coverdale. Okay, really great guy. Definitely recommend checking out his channel. He's had great success as well. And he just got on Fox News recently. He was a guest on Kennedy. So I'm really happy for the guy. I'm really happy he's getting to get his message out there. I consider all these guys a good ally, and they've really helped me in the past by bringing me on their show, helping me get that exposure. So I owe all three of those guys a lot, and I owe all of you a lot as well. For those who've been, watchers, viewers, subscribers for a long time, because I know some people, just like typical in today's culture, they hear something they don't like one time and they get all triggered and offended, and then they unsubscribe. I don't know what I talked about in the last live stream, but there were a few people who unsubscribed. I don't know what was it? Me talking about the Super Bowl halftime show and how quit complaining about it? Like what the hell pissed them off? I don't know, but I lost about 4 subscribers or so. But you know what? Oh well. You can't please everyone. So to those who stick with me, I got to say thank you, because that's what I want this live stream about when I close out this chapter. As I'm not talking about these other topics that are going on in the world around us, this is going to be one to thank the viewers, to thank the subscribers, thank those that have been here with me for the long haul. So let me read a few of these live chats here real quick. Got some coming in from Ronwell. Hi, Charles. I like Frank analysis. Yeah. Hey, he's really good. And again, for those who haven't checked out Franco, if you haven't, go check out Frank analysis. Go check out the Naturalist Capitalist. And you can and Alan Myron has a YouTube channel as well. Puts together a lot of Tulsi clips. But definitely go check him out on Twitter as well at Alan Myron. Let's see, Ronwell, I may not be able to make it, but I'm glad I made a visit for the end of this chapter here. Well, I appreciate you stopping by, my friend. There's a lot going on. When I had the idea for this, I didn't expect that we would have the giant elephant in the room of Russia, actually invading Ukraine. I didn't think that was going to wind up being the big talking point of the day, but oh well, it's become that, right? So we got to roll with it. Like I said, that's something me and Alan Myron talked about. Going to try and take up another about 5 minutes. I'm going to roll it right around the 7 o'clock mark here. But for everyone that's tuning in, start dropping those live chats after the Alan Myron clip. I'm going to answer some live chats from some folks. Me and Reed are going to talk about some things. And then after that, I'll be answering some more live chats. Ask whatever you want. The floor is open for today, okay? This is the going away party. And as I've said before, after this live stream tonight, I won't be having any content probably come up on the channel for just a little while. The new studio is all but done. The only thing I've really got to do is just move some equipment out. I've got to move lights and laptop, mic, camera, stuff like that, desk. get everything set up. So it shouldn't take too long. I'm thinking maybe just set aside the time to start moving it all. It should be out there within a week to 2 week tops. So this is going to be the end of the chapter live stream. We're going to have fun with this. Hopefully we get a lot of chats coming in so I can respond to some viewers here. But we're 3 minutes away from top of the hour. I tell you what, I think I'm going to go ahead and roll this clip with Alan Myron. We're going to be talking about a little bit about the stuff with Tulsi, how and it ties in with this Russia-Ukraine situation. Now, she was smeared. We talk about, technology, the ways of the future. But let me go ahead and roll this. Go ahead and check it out, guys. Hope you'll stay tuned for it. And I want to introduce you to a special guest. If you've been over on Twitter, you follow me over there pretty much, you probably know who this guy is. But just in case you don't, I want to introduce my guest, Alan Myron. This is a guest that is long overdue to the show. I really should have had this guy on long before now, I'll be honest. That's my fault. Just not been able to get the stuff together, but I'm glad we've got him on. And hopefully this won't be the last time you ever see him on the Lone Wolf podcast. I got to give a shout out. I owe this guy a lot. When I first started my channel, was the Independent Report. And when I was covering Tulsi Gabbard, I was not getting very much traction at all in those very early videos. And I made a Tulsi Gabbard video, and I think I was staggering around like 30 subscribers or something. This guy shared my stuff around, and in no time, I started getting some viewers rolling in. My first 100 to 200 subscribers, I say, would be in large part to this guy right here sharing my stuff around, getting the videos out there. So I really owe him a lot for what growth I've had on this channel, and I'm glad you're able to come on today. How you doing, Alan?
Fine, thank you. Very kind introduction. I don't know necessarily that I deserve it, but very appreciate it.
Well, that's how I feel over here, buddy. And you've been a supporter of mine. We've had a lot that's going on in the 2+ years since I started this channel. We went through the 2020 Democratic primaries. We went through all of that chaos. We've gone through the 2020 election, January 6th, the Joe Biden presidency. I mean, there's been a lot that's gone on, and my opinions have changed on some things over time. But no matter what has been going on, there have been some viewers that have come and go, but Alan's been right here, sticking around. He's been interacting with me over on Twitter. He's been commenting in the videos. So, he's definitely one of my biggest supporters, and that really means a lot to me. So for that, I said, you know what, if there was a time to do it, when we're ending the chapter at this point of the Lone Wolf podcast, I need to get this guy on. So Alan, elephant in the room right now, Russia, Putin, Ukraine. What have you been following so far with what's been going on here, man? Let me know what you've been kind of keeping your eye on.
Just to put things into context, I think that something that it was very obvious from the past few years is that not that many people pay attention. So if anything, what the 2020 campaign showed us was that the level of misinformation and control over the opinions of a vast majority of people. One of the reasons that I really enjoyed your videos is because you are open-minded, you are data-driven, and you are open to have rational and polite discussion even with people who disagree. And honestly, that I thought, I'm an engineer, and that's kind of the way that we operate in engineering circles, right? Data talks.
Right.
So anybody can have an opinion, but at the end of the day, you look at the data, you treat the data, and then you say, yeah, I was right, or no, I was mistaken. Let's move on. But what it was incredibly obvious was the little traction that, for example, Tulsi had, and the amount of vitriol that was thrown her way And when you take the time and look at the data, you say, well, this makes no sense. What is really going on? And then you start realizing that, the ways that the media attacks people. There was this very interesting article that Robbie looked for, where it was Tulsi Gabbard has enemies in high places, which basically it's this kind of consolidation of the political and the media environment where they just basically close ranks and they can go and attack people. Right. So, and a bit of a side note, so that's why I guess I tend to support people with a T, because now, okay, so it was Tulsi, and now if you take a look at some of the attacks that are thrown towards Elon Musk, they follow exactly the same recipe. It's exactly the same coordinated views that permeate the media and so on. So it now, going back to Russia, that's exactly the problem, that we see exactly that same apparatus that is trying to lead us into believing one narrative. I guess one of my last tweets was Putin is guilty, Biden is guilty, and the president of Ukraine is guilty. And who's going to suffer are just the people and the rest of us. This level of control of the media that in a way molds and dictates what people see makes them blind to taking responsibility for our actions, identifying what could be possible solutions, and even just how we want to move forward as a world in a way. So it is, I say always that one of the biggest gifts that the Tulsi campaign gave me was to find like-minded individuals who people say that we are Tulsians and that we don't hold Tulsi to the fire. I would argue we are probably some of the most strict and very peculiar supporters, because if Tulsi was not doing what most of us believe is the right thing to do, we will immediately she will immediately lose our support. So again, a lot of people say, oh, it's just that this is what you think, and you think she's pretty. I mean, I like blondes. So yeah. If that was the case, recently not my type. But what I care about is for people who have integrity, that you look at their actions, that I don't make a decision based on a picture or based on a single tweet. You look at the whole background. It takes a lot of effort. And again, if there is a characteristic that I will give to, again, all of these people that, yes, as you mentioned, some have stopped supporting Tulsi. So there are some new people that now are supporting Tulsi, but one of the characteristics is, show me the data. Let's discuss it. Let's figure out if you are right or wrong. And it's not just a kind of a gut feeling of you are wrong, I am right, you are the enemy, you are racist. It's just inconceivable.
Yeah, I agree. That's one of the things. Like, there's a lot of people, and even I at one point, when Tulsi dropped out, I had my moment where I was a little critical of her, but I never. And this is what I've always told a lot of people. Like, when we're talking about the Tulsi, whether she ran or what's going on right now, is I agree with this idea of canceling all because you all of a sudden found a disagreement. I think that's a big part of the problem that's going on right now. And she's been catching, the Assad toady or the Russian asset stuff going all the way back to the last election. They've been throwing those smears at her. And you see a lot of that right now. And I'll say this for any viewers that are like, well, if we're talking about Russia, why are we bringing Tulsi up right now? I got to throw this out. I don't know if anyone's really looked at the tweet I put out earlier today, but I retweeted a tweet from Tulsi Gabbard about the whole thing that's going on right now with Russia and Ukraine and warmongers and things like that. I don't remember the exact wording, but I remember when I read it at the time, I'm like, hey, she's on point again. And I retweeted it, and someone responded to me, replied to my retweet, and was basically along like, we've known you're a Russian asset for a long time now. Now, guys, this is a lady who's actively serving in the armed forces, okay, and for the record, take gender out of it. Why don't you tell me how many sitting politicians have sat in those offices and continued to serve in the armed forces? Because the majority of them love to promote war. Tulsi is anti-imperialist. She doesn't want all these interventionist wars where we're trying to build empire. She doesn't want that sort of stuff. And yet she still serves in the military while she was serving in Congress. Now, obviously, she's left Congress now, but how many other people can you think of off the top of your head that have done something like that, at least in recent memory? I can't think of any. Can you?
Well, now that, so I also have to say that originally I was unaffiliated. Then because of Tulsi, I had to register Democratic because it was a closed election. Then I started going around to figure out, I really hated duopoly, tried to go to the libertarian side. I really couldn't stand most of the people there. So now, especially after what has happened with COVID, again, since we are mentioning who will be something like that, Ron DeSantis, he is in the, he is also military and he is still in the National Guard. I mean, he's still in the reserves. So
yeah, I didn't know Ron DeSantis was still actually serving. That's surprising.
Yes. So, and again, you start looking at, again, you can have disagreements or not, but the ability to say, I'm going to be open-minded, I'm going to treat this in a different way, and then just start looking at the data, right? I see that these monoclonal antibodies work as a treatment. Well, I'm going to try to get as much as that and make it available to my constituents. So things like that are, again, you can say, well, but he's a racist. It's like, come on. I mean, what is more racist than preventing somebody who is sick to get the proper treatment?
Exactly.
So, and again, it's I basically registered now as a Republican because I also realized that the only person that is representing me is Thomas Massie in Congress. So, so suddenly you realize, hey, and again, talking about the brainwashing, I've been told that all of these people are evil, and then you start realizing that they align closer with your values. Not all of them. There are a lot of people that are warmongers and they want to do very, very crazy things. And again, I'm not saying every Republican is good, every Democrat is bad. I support Tulsi. She still calls herself a Democrat. I like Ron DeSantis. I like Thomas Massie. They are Republican. I don't like everybody else. But why? It's not because I don't like them kind of from this gut feeling. I look at the way that they interact with people, how they are data-driven, how they are representing their constituents. And at the end of the day, that's what democracy should be. It's not, I am going to be doing what I think is best, like what the recent statement from the White House that basically said, yes, we are defending democracy. Hey, what about the polls where only 15% of the people supported? Oh, we don't rule by polls. So you are defending democracy by ignoring democracy. So but again, for somebody that has been tuned to identify all of this hypocrisy, it's very obvious. But you try to have this level of engagement with other people, they don't even see it, and it's extremely disturbing.
No, there's too much party politics, and to tie that kind of back in with the whole Russia situation there, that's what's going on right now. If you're speaking out, and look, I'm not going to say I like what Russia just did. Now, previous where they recognized the independence of like the Donbass region, for example, okay, to me those parts of Ukraine voted that they wanted to be independent. So do I have an issue with that? Necessarily, no. They considered themselves more ethically Russian. Okay. They didn't want to be part of this Ukrainian regime that's in charge right now. They didn't want to be part of it. So, but when he sent the troops in, I'm not going to say I agree with that. Some people didn't expect that he would actually do it. He did. However, there is a case to be made here. You know, and I think Kim Iverson actually did a really good job of pointing this out. It was either last night or early. I watched it this morning. I don't remember exactly when she posted it, but she was talking about the fact, like, when you're talking about this whole NATO expansion thing, a lot of the tensions that are going on right now between the United States and Russia are the United States poking that bear because they want a boogeyman. They need someone to complain about. So they used Russia to complain about election meddling for 4 years under Donald Trump. Okay. They've used her as, you know, they've used Russia to attack Tulsi Gabbard even. She's Russian asset, blah, blah, blah. They've used Russia and demonized Russia. And it's interesting enough, at one point, Putin even asked to join NATO. They wanted to kind of become more part of the group, right?
Yes.
So the thing about it is, you know, the United States kind of flexed their muscles like, no, don't let them in. Okay. Well, then, and keep in mind, like, all the people right now who are so mad about what's taking place, if you're on the left, you just voted. Well, in some, not all lefties, true lefties probably didn't, but you know, the TYT leftists, they advocated to vote for Joe Biden. Okay. Keep in mind, it was the Obama-Biden administration that backed a coup in Ukraine in 2014 to toss out their leader at the time, who was more lenient to Putin, right?
And that, according to the international observers, it was a democratically elected president. So,
right.
So again, it's one of those cases. It's what Tulsi has been always talking about: the regime change wars. Right? I don't like that person. Okay, so let's get rid of him. And I completely agree with you. War will never, and killing people will never have my support. So the fact that Putin did what he did, it's horrible. And at this point, now what we need to do is to minimize the casualties, right? We need to minimize suffering. And we can always say, shoulda, coulda, woulda. We should have done this. We could have done this. We should.
Right.
At the end of the day, that's one of the things that I really like about Tulsi, that says, you know, we live in a real world. We don't live in the world that we wish we had. We live in a real world, so there is going to be a certain level of compromises. And if you notice, there was just recently announced, what Putin is basically asking? He's basically asking for Ukraine should disarm in order to meet the Minsk Accords, and it should not join NATO. Those are the two requests that Putin is making. So it's not that we need to put another president. It's not asking for the current president to resign. It's not asking for Ukraine become part of Russia. It's, at the end of the day, something that could have been achieved via simply diplomacy. But as we are saying, we feel we need to find that boogeyman. We need to find the threat that is going to help us get distracted and really not paying attention to what is going on. And well, here we are. It's again, just also blaming the American government. You know, they have a big thing, but at the end of the day, who invited Ukraine? It was Putin. But again, you cannot really take sides. And it goes back to this idea of how do you perform diplomacy? Unless you, and this applies to even our own country. When you say, everybody that disagrees with me is evil, the only solution to that is genocide. Right? Because you know, if you don't disagree with them and you want to get rid of evil, the only solution is genocide, because it's preventing you from talking to the people that disagree with you, preventing you from convincing them perhaps of your ideas, or perhaps adopting some of their ideas. And genocide is never a good idea, right? So, but it's incredibly again, frustrating to see a large majority of the American public completely blind and deaf to what is really going on. And again, for some of us who already have seen it, now it's almost like it's like one of those children games, right? Can you identify where the propaganda is going on? You say propaganda. Oh, that's news. Okay, propaganda.
I mean, that's pretty much what the news is when you think about it today. And, I tweeted this out earlier because I just finished listening to it early this morning. I started it last night and I had to finish it this morning, but I just finished listening to a recent episode of the Joe Rogan Experience where he had on Majid Nawaz. Now, I first came across this guy years ago in a YouTube clip, and he was talking about like when you started hearing a lot of the stuff about I think you had like the San Bernardino episode, and then that's when Trump started his stuff about, the Muslim ban and all that. I think it was right around that time was when I first stumbled across him, and he was on Bill Maher's show, and he was explaining what the difference is between a follower of Islam and an Islamist. So for those who haven't really listened to that guy, I would highly recommend go check him out. He's a very well-spoken, intelligent man. And he brought up a lot of great points. So I would definitely recommend checking out that episode if you haven't of the Joe Rogan Experience as well. But, he talked about what's going on with this issue. He kind of touched on it with the Russia-Ukraine situation. And really, I mean, you think about it. Russia has changed a lot since the Soviet Union. Okay. We're not talking about the same country that was being led by Khrushchev or Stalin or whatever, or even Gorbachev. Okay. It's a different place. Their standard of living is far better than it was during, especially the final days of the Soviet Union, where their money was worth almost nothing. They've got restaurants, they've got live music, they got bars. I mean, it's a much better, vibrant society than it used to be in a lot of ways. Now, people say what they want about Putin, and they say, well, he's a corrupt leader, we shouldn't side with corrupt leaders. Well, okay, why do we do what we do with Saudi Arabia? Okay. I mean, we partner with Saudi Arabia. Look how we back Israel.
I mean, there's plenty of examples.
Yeah, I mean, it's a joke. So, the way I look at it is, the Obama administration, to touch on them again, it was Obama who tried to make a laughing stock out of Mitt Romney for all this Russia bashing in the 2012 debates by saying the 1980s called and want their foreign policy back. Okay. So Obama downplayed the threat of Russia in 2012. He also got caught on a hot mic basically telling Putin that when I get reelected, I can, my hands won't be as tied and I can do more to wheel and deal with you. I'm paraphrasing there, right? Mm-hmm. So this was the stance back then, but then all of a sudden things just switched and changed, and now they're a boogeyman. Well, guess what? All this alienating of Russia's doing. It's pushing them closer and closer and closer to being an ally with China. Okay. And, there's a lot of people, I've had guests on my show who really aren't against China, that some think China's a pretty decent place from what I gather. I'll say I'm not fully one side or the other. I think I recognize where China can do some things better than us, but I don't trust China. I don't. I really don't. That's just my personal stance. And I would say they've definitely got an edge over this country in a lot of ways. And what just came out, and this is what I was getting to with Majid Nawaz, as he pointed out, British MI5 just had to put out, information that there was a sitting member, I believe, of Parliament who was a Chinese spy. Okay. On top of that, I don't know if you remember this or not, but you had the whole scandal of, what's his name? Swalwell. Remember, he got caught with the lady that was supposed to be
yes.
like a Chinese spy or whatever. And she was like prostituting and having an affair with him and all this, right? So they're over here. Now, look, am I going to say the United States probably isn't involved in the same stuff? I mean, I think we've seen enough about what the CIA will do to know better. But the thing is, you've also, even if we are, you've got Chinese, people who are loyal to the Chinese Communist Party who are trying to infiltrate these other governments, possibly get the dirt on them and use their leverage in the same way. So here's what I'm getting at, right? If Russia is starting to become more of a society in the way that the rest of Europe or we are, and they really didn't seem to want to have any problem with us. They even asked at one point to join NATO, continuing to alienate them and push them to the side where they're at some point probably just going to join forces with China. That makes us a giant sitting duck, right? I mean, what's your take on that?
So several things. We have offices in China and we have offices in Russia.
Right.
And I have very, very good friends in both places. And what it was really obvious, and we are talking exactly about that let's actually go back as to what works. At the end of the day, we had a war with Germany and with Japan. Right. And now we are some of our stronger allies. What did we do? The Marshall Plan. Right? It was not additional sanctions. It was not alienating those countries. It was trying to find a way to resurrect their economies and make them prosperous. Because when you have money to spend, you want to keep that standard of living.
Right.
So to me, there is a very, very clear example of a situation when you had mortal enemies that at the end of the day became allies, and the methodology was joint cooperation. So just like you described with Russia as to how they wanted to integrate more with the West. So again, we could see that it became easier to, for example, open offices in Russia. And that's the way that also it's kind of like cultural integration, right? You have now friends, people that you respect on the other side, and they respect you back, and you joke, you become friends, you can talk about our respective governments, and you move forward. Same thing in China. What happened with China is because of the sanctions after Biden took office, a lot of high-tech companies cannot do now businesses with China. So what happens is that now we kind of are disconnected. So now that office is kind of just a satellite office, completely cut off from us. And again, this ability for us to show a different face of the American mode of doing business and economy and culture, it's prevented from helping those countries to perhaps adopt some of those approaches, right? Because at the end of the day, everybody kind of knows what works and what doesn't, right? So you see, hey, that people, they seem to be happier, or I'm not as happy as they are. But you need to have that level of interaction. And the fact that now we literally are forbidden to have that interaction because there can be IP that can leak, and otherwise we get smacked because of the State Department and stuff like that. It's counterproductive, because now what happens is that a lot of that technology now is going to be developed only in China. It's going to continue to evolve. We are going to be disconnected from that progress. And we are losing, right? So we are losing our ability to better propagate the American values. And at the same time, we're getting ourselves weaker, because these are not small countries. These are countries that have plans that are long-term, that are not based on what is going to happen on the next election. So they are able to have this kind of generational plans that we completely lack, right? So that long-term perspective. So we can talk about a lot about the benefits of democracy, but we also have to recognize that there are benefits about these kind of single-state countries that allow them to have this long-term planning that, because of our political system, we are unable to do. So again, to me, is if we want to see that's again one of the reasons that in a way I kind of started moving more towards maybe spend my effort helping to support Elon Musk, is because if you notice what he is doing, he supports crypto, right? So I kind of had a tweet along those lines. So what are some of the problems we have? We are talk always about all of these Fed control. Well, he's a big supporter of crypto, right? So in a way, he's attacking the big banks and the Fed. Of course, the oil and gas companies that are the source of all of these problems and wars. Well, he's focusing on solar and electrification of vehicles. Things in China that, again, a lot of these companies, they need to have a co-ownership with a Chinese company. He is the only American company that is fully owned in China. Why? Because the technology that they have was so superior that Chinese said, okay, so either I have them here in my country, in which, well, maybe eventually I can perhaps hire some of those engineers and help my own companies and so on, but they wanted him in because, first of all, also they don't see him as a nationalist, right? They see it as, he's doing something good for the environment. We know that our environment sucks. It's not that they want to continue polluting, and that's why they are investing so much in solar. They are investing so much in electrification of their fleets. So again, we may perhaps don't like the fact that we are told what to do, but a lot of the things that they are doing make sense. So again, it goes back into what is a much more effective way of, for a long time, people were saying, oh, the Green New Deal, and we're going to have this huge government program that is going to be doing all of these things. And always the problem that I had with that, it was at best, that will happen in the US, but there is absolutely no incentive for any other country to reduce their emissions.
Right.
Versus the approach that Tesla, for example, is saying is like, you know what, I'm going to be making these systems and cars that are so cool that everybody is going to want to drive them. So that way, I don't need to impose a tax. I don't need to convince other people to subsidize or whatever. No, simply people say, you know what, I like that. I want it. So there was this report probably like 2 months ago that is looking as to the carbon emissions that China itself has had because of the adoption of Tesla cars, right? So it's in a way, it's a policy that is not only taking an effect here in the US, but worldwide. So something that you could not do in the traditional political environment. So, but again, then you start seeing as to he doesn't really spend money on lobbyists. He doesn't really spend money in political contributions. So that's when you suddenly start seeing that, well, now the government doesn't necessarily like that, right? Because they are used to get all cozy with all of these billionaires. But in a way, that's one of the benefits for Elon to be autistic, that he doesn't care about those things, right? He kind of has a mission and he's just solely focused on that. And a lot of people that do not understand kind of his sense of humor and so on, well, I mean, he's Asperger's, right? He has mentioned it, and even you can see in the way that he behaves and acts, it's obvious. So that's what then you provide context, right? That a lot of people, for example, just for this comment that he made one time about, oh, we can coup whatever we want, when there was this whole thing with what was the lithium mines in Bolivia, right?
Right.
That at the end of the day, he deleted the tweet. Now, he kind of used coup he's sometimes kind of a dirty old man, and his sense of humor is very sexualized. And so that was actually kind of the behavior behind that particular tweet, right? But everybody on the left took it as, look how imperialist he is and so on. And at the end of the day, you look at, okay, you are saying that he did all of these things because of the lithium. One, lithium, it's very, very available everywhere. Two, he gets his lithium from Australia. Three, he got the lithium mining rights in a location in Nevada. So he has zero interest in getting, it's not like it's like oil, right? That, oh, there is only lithium in this particular region of the world. So again, a lot of people just making a full set of assumptions and imprinting into Elon Musk their own misconceptions or their own beliefs without looking at the available data. And then somebody that could be a very, very strong advocate and ally into solving all of these things that are problems in the world. We say, oh, I don't like him because he's kind of weird, right?
Yeah. Or just because he's a billionaire or whatever the reasoning is. But
yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, I want to bring up one more thing that, that you actually just brought up when you're talking about the whole Green New Deal thing. That was one of the questions you touched on a little bit that I always asked was, okay, say we start doing all this stuff here, how do we get the rest of the world to do it too? You know what I mean? Now I know there were some people that said like, well, China's already starting to do this and this. Yeah, but India really isn't, and India pollutes a lot. I mean, we can only really control what we're doing right here. And there's really only one way to make another country do it, and that's to try to go in there and force them to. But guess what? All that bomb dropping contributes a lot to what's going on with our climate as well. So, all these endless wars that we've been involved in, I don't care what you do right here, that's going to hurt the climate. That's hurting our planet. And guess what? Perhaps sticking our nose in other people's business, trying to box another major power in the world into a corner, like we've been doing with Russia to some extent, to the point that now they're finally, going in and doing special operations or whatever they're calling this that they're doing in Ukraine right now, kind of coming in from all directions. Pretty sure there's going to be some stuff done in that conflict that ain't too good for our planet either, so.
And again, perhaps I have tunnel vision in the sense that I believe technology is the way forward, because exactly your question as to how do we force people to do what is right. At the end of the day, I believe, and again, I look at the data, superior technology will win. So for example, what happens in Africa? In Africa, they didn't have to build a telecom infrastructure, digging cables, and doing all of these things. They simply adopted wireless communication. Why? Because it's much easier to implement, it's much easier to sustain, and so on, right? So actually, I am a bit more optimistic in that sense, if we really are doing, and if we have the correct leadership, right? So there is this very, very nice video that talks about superpower. Now, superpower being this combination of renewables and batteries. So what is kind of the bottom line there? Everybody always say, well, it's just that, the sun is not always shining, the wind is not always blowing, it's intermittent. You cannot really use that. But Anthony Saba has this, basically they performed that analysis. Again, people that basically said, okay, how are we going to actually able to achieve this? And then they start optimizing the combination of power generation with storage. And there is kind of a sweet spot, and you don't want to have a lot of storage because at the end of the day, it makes it more expensive. You don't want to have very little storage because then you are not able to meet the demand. So when you design the system so that it is not intermittent, what they found out is that at the end of the day, there is actually going to be a lot of additional power that is going to continue to be generated. So now there are kind of these peak times, kind of the opposite of what we have with regular power generation systems, right? That actually there is demand and now you don't have enough power generation. Here is kind of the opposite, that you have this constant power generation, but then you are going to have peak times in which basically that energy is free, right? Because it's just coming into your system, you can no longer store it, and you are generating it. So by making just small additional increments in the power generation, suddenly the amount of power that you can actually generate with the same footprint, it starts to double or triple. So the whole point is that there is actually a future in which these technologies can actually make energy really, really, really abundant. And really the trick was that if we were having this discussion 10 years ago, wind and solar systems, they were much more expensive than traditional power generation systems. But now, because technology has improved, they are actually in that particular cost curve that it is decreasing in an exponential rate. So now, if somebody wants to create a power generation plant, it's actually cheaper to go into renewable energy. So now, for company, because that was actually always the issue that, for example, India had. I am a poor country. I cannot do solar because solar is going to cost me 3 times as much as coal. Now you come and say, solar, by the way, is going to be 20% cheaper than coal. Well, it would be just stupid not to do it. Now, the problem is that what is happening in California goes back to the hypocrisy. California, led by Democrats, saying that they are these green groups, they are now adding a tax to solar households, to households that have implemented solar. So actually, Elon Musk kind of sent a note telling people that, hey, you have to talk to your representatives, because what effectively the Californian government is doing, it's creating a tax that suddenly doesn't make solar competitive. So on one side, we are told we are the green people that is going for renewables. On the other side, they go, well, but I do receive my money from these utilities, and you find excuses. Okay, so we need to have a grid, and now there is too much solar going on here, so let's go and try to tax it. Or the tax that now people want to put into electric cars, because they say, well, since now I'm going to lose the revenue of the gas tax, now I need to have an additional tax going on. But because they are not followed by data, they are now suddenly making it more costly. So this is the hypocrisy that I simply cannot stand, right? That I'm told one thing, and I look at the data and I see exactly the opposite. And, again, this is something that I appreciate from a lot of the Tulsi supporter people, and you can actually see that same level of determination in the Tesla community, because Tesla, again, has been pushed by big oil, as we have to completely annihilate it. What Mary Barra from GM did when the Tesla was having problems, it was go and get all our supplies from Tesla suppliers so that they don't have access to that, and it's expensive. So again, it was not trying to win by better technology. It was trying to win by force, right? So, and then suddenly the president of the United States come in and says that Mary Barra and General Motors are the ones that electrified the automobiles in America. It's like, dude, are you an employee of General Motors or what? I mean, this is, or the fact that says we want to have good union jobs. And then you realize that in average, Tesla workers get paid 20% more than unionized workers. So again, what is the goal? Is the goal to have unions, or is the goal to have good working conditions for the employees? Well, it should be good working conditions. Perhaps for some companies, unions is the answer. But if there is another company that is actually providing better value than unions, well, maybe perhaps leave those companies alone. Don't force them to go into a system that is broken.
Right. Yeah, I completely agree with that. And I do think that you're on to something there about, but better technology will win over time. I think if you look through history, that's definitely been the case. The light bulb replaced oil lamps. Cars replaced horse and buggy. I mean, just go through the list. I mean, I definitely think you're on to something there. And I think we're starting to look at what's going on. We're looking at that next step, in automobiles and how we get our power. So I think you bring up a really good point there. But yeah, I want to thank you for coming on again. I've definitely got to have you back, man, because it's been long overdue to get you on the show. And I feel like me and you could just go back and forth on all kinds of stuff. So once I get this new studio up and running, I got to bring you back on and just get a whole podcast done with you, man.
That would be my pleasure.
Okay. I want to thank Alan for coming on. Do me a favor, seriously, guys, do me a favor. Go check out Alan Myron over on Twitter. You can find him. It's at Alan Myron, right?
Yep. That's correct.
Just go check him out. Give him a follow. I think you've got a YouTube channel. You put some like clips and stuff together.
Well, now they are, yes, they are mostly Tulsi videos, but it's my, some people like to golf. I like to make videos, so
okay,
they are there.
Yeah, so definitely go check it out. Give the guy a follow over on Twitter. And again, I want to thank Alan for coming on. It's been a great conversation. Take care out there, brother.